So I'm going to do a quick video about actually flushing out a 2013 Honda Fit. I say flush loosely because we're not involving any chemicals or forced anything. I'm using the same approach that I used in my Nissan Altima video, where I'm just going to use the car itself just to pump the fluid out and to keep replenishing it with clean fluid until I get clear fluid coming out, at which point most probably not all, but about most of the fluid should be replenished. This is on a 2013 Honda Fit. I've got it up in the air on my quick jacks. If you don't know what quick jacks are, look them up. They're worth every dime as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, I have already gone ahead and replaced the transmission filter. In order, you can find videos that are going into detail on doing that. You have to take this air box out of the way. You've got a screw here. You've got a screw right down there that comes off. You unclip everything. You unclip this here, which I need to remember to clip back in so I don't forget. You clip that in, take this out. There's a couple of screws to take that out. You've got a clamp right here. I got it with a pair of vice grips to hold. And this whole air box has to come out. There's also a screw up on the air box. I'm going to show that right back there. Right there, if you can see it. And it's a weird one. It's either 5.5 millimeter or 7/32 of an inch. You get that little screw, little clamp loose. That clamps on this whole air box unit. And you've got a couple other doodads you got to get out of the way. Then the battery has to go. You got to take the battery connectors off. I have it wired in for an amp. That's why this is here. Had to take all that off. Take these off, of course, the battery hold downs. Make sure you don't spark anything on the frame, of course. There are two screws on the very top. This is the tray. There are two screws on the top, and there are two screws that are going this way in the bottom. One of them is right down. I don't know if I can get that on camera very well. No, not real well. One of them is right here, and there's another one across from it, right on the other side on the bottom of that battery tray. This one I could get through with an extension from this side up front, and the other one I had to crawl up underneath and get to with a flexible ratchet. Take the battery tray out, and your filter is right up underneath this whole mess, sitting on top of the transmission, and then it's just a matter of fighting it out of there. Anyway, you can look for other videos that'll tell you how to do that. My concern is that I want to show you the flushing part of this thing. Now, I've already crawled up under here. Crawl up under here. Sorry for the movement. Here's your drain bolt. Uses, well, I'll get my finger on it. It just uses a regular 3/8 inch ratchet with no socket of any kind, just the actual ratchet head itself. You take that out, drain your fluid out, put a new crush washer on it, put it back in. 36 pounds of foot torque of pressure. With the filter, you're putting in about 3 quarts. That's what I put in, 3 quarts. Capacity is supposed to be 2.6. Wheel filter is about 3 quarts. Okay? There's no pan on this car. No transmission pan that you take loose or anything like that on this one. Okay? So you have the filter on top that does the filtration. Now, when I take this out, I'm getting about 2.5, like I said, about 2.6 to 3 quarts out. There's this unit, this whole transmission takes 6 quarts total. So Honda's way is that you do a drain, refill, drive it for 100 miles, do a drain, refill, drive it for 100 miles, do a drain, refill, and that gets 90% of the fluid changed, is what they say. However, another way to do this is, if you look right here, of course, this is the front of the car out this way. Here's your oil filter. Right here, kind of gives you something to orient by. Here's a little radiator hose right here. This hose here, right in front of me, this hose goes from the transmission here out to the transmission cooler, which is sitting up under the radiator here. So that's your line going into the transmission cooler, is right here, right next to that little radiator hose. Now I went ahead and took the cover off. There's a plastic cover that sits up under here, so I just fight all the clips off and the screw to get that cover off because it makes it easier to see, and it should be to drain. But right next to the radiator drain here. This is the other line. If I can get this thing in focus for me. Right here's the other line that's coming from the transmission cooler, going up and back into the transmission. That's the return. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, take this line apart right here. I'm going to drain this out, and now I'm going to put a hose on right here going into a container. I have an empty 1 gallon oil container. And that way I can, and then I'll start the car up, run it for 5-10 seconds or so, drain about a quart, refill a quart, do the same thing several times until I've run about 4 more quarts through this, at which point I should be getting clear fluid out. And then I'll know it's flushed. So hopefully this is easy enough to find for you. It's right next to the radiator drain cock towards the driver's side of the car. All right, let's get that set up. Okay, so what I've done is I took that hose loose, pair of vice grips, wrestled it loose, put some 3/8 inch clear tubing that I had over the hose coming out of the cooler. And that's going into, I kept a container that I did an oil change with. All right, as you can see, I've drained just over 3 quarts out and put 3 quarts back in. So that's a total of 6 quarts. That should be just about what this transmission holds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start it up again, drain about another quart out of it, and then I'm going to put less than a quart in just because I want this. Let's see if we can back that up a little bit maybe. I want this so that it's not over full. Once I'm done with this kind of flushing thing, then I will put, I'll drain probably 1 more quart out of it. I'll put about a 1/2 quart in, and then we'll button up everything, and then I'll have to go drive it, get it warmed up, and then come back and check the transmission fluid level, and then adjust it, top off the fluid. I'd rather have a little bit low and have to add to it. I don't want to have to drain any back out. So we're going to start it again. Run it for roughly 10 seconds or so. Roughly 10 seconds, and I'm just under 4 quarts. See, I'm just under 4 quarts. So I've actually put 3 quarts in it when I did the filter, which they say 2.6 without a filter, about 3 quarts with a filter. And now I've run another almost 4 quarts through it. And so that's over 6 quarts. So that should be about it. I'm probably going to go ahead and start it up just a little bit, get it to about that 4 quart mark, and then put a 1/2 quart in. Like I said, then I'm going to button everything back up, take it for a drive, and then check the level. Okay, I started it back up just for a few more seconds. That puts me just over the 4 quart. That's close enough. So, which means I have drained and or flushed 7 quart, almost, well, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 6 quarts through, that's the max capacity. And then I've actually done 7 quarts out of it, drained 7 quarts out of the transmission total. So I drained the first 2.5 or 2.6 they say out of the pan, and then I've gone through 3 additional quarts. So that should pretty much flush the system. So right now I should be about a quart low. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put 1/2 quart in, like I said, and then I'm just kind of guesstimating on that. I don't know exactly. So that's about 1/2 quart. That's what I'm going to put in it. I'm going to put everything underneath back together, and then we'll take her for got to get the bottom cover back on. plus the 50 little clips. We'll take it for a drive, and then we'll do the fuel level. Honda says take it to a drive till the fan's cut on, and then let it sit for a minute, but no more than 90 seconds. I'm not sure why that's the magic number, but it probably has to do with the fluid temperature. And then check the fluid level. So the idea behind this is, while I'm doing this, like I said, is to try to use the car itself just to pump fluid through the torque converter, through the oil cooler, thereby flushing out the old coolant, but not by using chemicals or anything like that that would harm the transmission. I'm just literally trying to replace the coolant. So now I'm going to go under here, take my clear hose out, reconnect the hose, put the bottom cover, you can see it laying there on the ground. And that's just a matter of clips and a few screws. And then we'll set her down and take her for a drive and then check the fluid level. Alright, so here's the clamp. I use a pair of needleless pliers. I took my clear hose off that I had just here to the oil cooler outlet, and then I'm just going to put the clamp back on. Get that put back on there. There we go. Make sure that's on there about where it should be. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and then, like I said, we'll put the cover back on. Of course, you got all these little holes everywhere. You got to put clips in. And, of course, I busted one clip, which was actually pretty good that I only busted one. So I got everything buttoned up, got it off the quick jacks, took it down the road, drove it for a bit, got it back, and I had to add that other rest of the half a quart. Remember, I'd only put a half a quart of the last in, and I didn't have to end up back in. That puts it right within the temperature area for hot, so that should be right. So I did go through a total of 7 quarts, and that was draining the transmission initially, and taking the filter out, and I put 3 quarts in then, and then I flushed out another 4 quarts. So given a 6 quart capacity, that should have flushed everything out of the system. So, and the reason I got into this, by the way, which I should have said before, is just because I have just did a regular 2.5 quart change and a filter change about 20-something thousand miles ago. But this car's got 124,000 on it, and the transmission was slipping just a little bit. So figured it'd be a good idea to go ahead and flush all the old fluid out, get new fluid in, and see how she does. Anyway, I hope this video helps somebody.